Saturday mornings with Danny Baker on 5 Live.
Highlighter pens, that's the way forward. If you're going to do drumming on the microphone, highlighter pens, that's it. It's a bass pedal. Very good morning to everybody. Here we go again. It's Louise Pepper on the other side of the table.
Good morning.
And we've got so much to do this morning. In our little sliver of a window of broadcasting we can do. You know what we should do? One of them podcasts every day.
Oh, that'd be nice.
What do they charge? About $19.99 each for those a day? Is that what they do?
Exactly. We get some of that advertising lark going.
Can you do it? Because if anyone to guide me,
billionaires.
If anyone to guide me, I'll be out of this place like that. Bang, gone. That's it. But I think £20 each per download is. No, I'm nearly 60.
Weekly.
I'm
daily.
I'm not kidding. I know it's all good just to give, but I've been doing this racket too long. Very good morning, everybody. So, ask me how I am.
How are you, Dan?
I'm all right now.
Oh. What happened,
Thank
Dan?
you, bless you. I nearly got to 4 that time. Watch out. I was away last week. I was in Sicily. And and we came back from Sicily. And I didn't drive the car about 4 more days. And so they'd been sitting outside the house for 10 days. And then just went over to Mark's. I'll go over there. Go on, I'll go. What do we need? I like doing that. And so I make it sound magnanimous, but I do it all the time. So I said I'd just go over to Mark's. And as I got in the car... Oh, yeah. I thought, ooh...
Bit ripe, was it?
It was exactly that. That is the more juste. It was a ripe. It was so ripe, and I thought it wasn't unpleasant ripe though. It was just so ripe. I know your nose.
Is there going to be an animal involved?
No, there's not. No, it wasn't that kind of ripe.
Oh, okay.
It was, although it leaned towards 10-year-old trainers that might have been.
But kit in a locker, sort of.
Yeah, there you go. And so, I drove out to Mark during enough, and I went in there and got the gear. And I come out, I opened the back of the boot, and I've got to tell you, as soon as I opened it, it just.
Is it like?
Thank you. Thank you. That's the one. As I opened the back of the boot, and I just thought, well, I've got to investigate.
Is it like one of those cop movies where you see the view from the boot and they all go, whoa!
Yeah. And I just couldn't. I thought, well, I'm not imagining this, and it's not going to go away. And it strengthened because I did park the car in the sun. Good morning, everyone. We'll start the show properly in a second. And so I thought, I'll investigate. And in the back of the car, it's strewn with coats that were thrown in there on days out months ago, where you throw a coat in the back and Wellington boots might still be in the back there. It's a Land Rover here, by the way. So and I'm turning stuff over and loads of carrier bags. Never let me pick up another wine carrier, by the way. Never.
No need.
No need. Unless I'm going out to buy 600 bottles of wine, I won't need all those wine carriers in the back of the Land Rover.
Which actually, knowing you, wouldn't be far off.
No, you're not wrong. So I'm turning over stuff, and then as I got towards the back, as I turned over the very last of the myriad wine carriers, there, rolling around, was an old mozzarella.
Oh!
An old rogue mozzarella.
Like Samuel Pepys.
It was. And what happened is, another thing I do, is I fill too many I fill carrier bags up until you have to pinch the handles. It'll all go in there, and I pinch the handles.
Not paying another 5p?
No, I've got them. I just can't, Anyway, and obviously this mozzarella would have been in one of those kind of oval plastic containers with all the liquid. It spilled out.
Ooh! So it wasn't ready to blow?
It was ready to blow.
Oh.
It had blown.
Oh.
It had blown.
Oh.
It had blown. It had blown.
Can you even look at a mozzarella now?
Listen to it. Anyway, so the car, as you can imagine at the moment, there is not a bottle of Febreze big enough. There just isn't.
You're going to have a service.
I know, but I couldn't do it to the fella. There you go. You'd never go back and get your car. You'd be too ashamed. An old mozzarella rolling around. Anyway, we've got plenty to be doing today. We could have done What Did Your Car Ever Stunk Of, but I don't know if people really want that.
Then you get into...
I know. I know. I know. You can talk to,
Mind
I'm talking
you-
to someone with how old is your little...
15 months,
there you
yeah.
go.
Mind you, my friend Chris and I once, after the pub, had a Chinese takeaway in his car. And the next day, he rang me up. A prawn ball had rolled under his seat.
Yeah.
Had rolled onto a newspaper, and the newspaper had gone completely translucent. Here you go. We ate about 10 of those. That's our stomach right now.
When we get... You see, if they gave us the breakfast show here at 5 Live, they should give us the breakfast show here at 5, because we can do this, we can tear this off by the yard. And yet they think people want to be updated on the election every morning. It is the great lie at the heart of broadcasting. Because it's run on, people by journalists' place, they don't anyone mention that nobody actually wants what we do.
It's overripe mozzarellas.
Let's make it up that the people want news and lots of it. But what they really want are rogue mozzarellas and prawn balls rolling around the bottom of cars. We'll be at your way soon. You can get on with all that. What are we doing this morning, Peps?
Number 1, the first thing you ever complained about.
Yeah, I think well, it doesn't matter, but I think it must have been a Fry's Turkish Delight, which I had one idea. I don't like Turkish Delight to this day. The first time I ever had one, I walked back into Cartwright's sweet shop and just said, "This tastes horrible." Well, what do you think it's going to taste like? It's Turkish Delight. I said, but I didn't think it would taste like that. It's horrible. You're not having your money back. And a 4-year-old indignant at that point I was. So yourself, do you know anything you might have complained about?
I was trying to think of this. I think I would have complained hugely about the unfairness of my brothers constantly being the only girl up
probably a
to
staple.
Particularly, we did find sometime. I must have complained about this at the time. I complained that I wasn't allowed in their gang. I remember.
Oh, all right.
They had a gang that was in the cupboard that was in the eaves.
Oh, there you
upstairs
go.
In my brother's room. And we found, my mum and dad clearing out a while back, they found the club rules and members, and, it was, chief of the club, Matthew, and co-chief Simon, members, Rory and Ewan, their friends. And me, at the bottom, cleaner.
Oh, man. See the patriarchy at work.
I complained long and
quite
strong about that one.
Labels. I remember getting a lot of labels to stick on, and the taste of labels in the 1960s. They tasted like an old mozzarella's been rolling around the back of a Land Rover for 4 weeks.
Not like a nice, tasty stamp.
So, yeah, well, now I know, so you're nearly out of time on this morning's show, but one thing leads to another. If I was standing at this election, and I'm not, one platform, fruit-flavoured postage stamp.
Oh!
There you go. That's it. Vote him in. Boom. Fruit-flavoured postage stamp. No. All we got to hear about is Brexit and the economy. That's why they won't give us the breakfast show on this station. Or any station. What do you got?
Number 2, don't talk to me about scissors.
Yeah, no, that, yeah. And I'm not talking about injuries there. But I know kids like to cut their own hair as well. But any time you might say, well, don't talk to me about scissors. You try to amend something. A hem, perhaps. What else?
Number 3, odd things your parents kept of yours.
Yeah, they, you say, well, keep that for, Mum. It's nice, but something you had as a child that they
beyond
keep...
the lock of hair and the odd...
But beyond that, yes, beyond that sort of stuff. Or in case of our kids and family, everything. Every single thing. And they won't let us chuck it away.
My mum did make me throw away my maths exercise books a while back. Why do you want these?
You do want them.
Your English ones have got essays.
You want them. I wish I'd kept all my school books.
Just sums.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Turned ruthless, my mother.
It isn't. It's the kid sitting behind you. It's that handwork. It's that doodle in the margin.
Oh.
It's the wallpaper you put on it, to cover the thing up. Yeah, all of that. I wish I still had my old maths books. Go on, what else have we doing, perhaps?
Mine are in a tip in Essex. Number 4, when imitating an animal came in handy.
I'm just going to leave that one there. And next one?
Number 5, fully clothed in pond, pool or river.
Yeah, and I don't mean in a knockabout prank you were thrown in. How do you end up fully clothed in a pond, pool or river? Thank you.
Number 6, your partner originally lied about their job.
Yep.
The old dolphin trainer in a bar in
We've got 11
Spain.
minutes to do all of these. Anyway, go on.
7. Notable things you will not do or eat on principle.
You know, I'll tell you.
I think we're going beyond vegetarianism.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. No, that we want to hear from people saying, "Do you know why I won't have a vase in the house?" Go on, ask me. That sort of thing.
Number 8. The worst place to leave something.
Yeah, okay.
Queen
I know. Worst place to leave something. I left a video camera, state-of-the-art video camera, and I'd only bought it for the holiday, in the lift at Bloomingdale's in New York.
Oh.
And it went up and down all day until we retraced our steps. And I said, well, I was in the lift, but it ain't going to still be there. And we said, have a look. I said, well, it ain't going to still be in the lift 6 hours later, is it? Going up and down all day. She went, I said, no, we'll just go and ask them. Is it being handed in? Well, just check. What lift was it? Oh, that one there. There it was.
No! In New York!
You'll just go up and down in the lift all day.
My brother got a knock on the door the other day from his neighbour to point out that his tablet, electric tablet, was on the roof of his car through a rainstorm.
Next week we'll do this.
Well done.
We'll do this because we'll have nothing to talk about next week, obviously.
Number 9. It wasn't worth the journey.
It weren't worth the journey. It wasn't worth the journey. Anything you can give us for that, please.
Number 10, to be explained on air. Jobs at our school.
Yes, we started this last week. Do you remember the woman who rang in? Why did I give her the geography teacher? Why did I give her the geography teachership? I said, I'll do German because I have a top grade in German, even though I only did German for 3 months, missed the exam, and when I came back they said, you can still take it, and they locked me in the library with all the German books to do it. So I'll be the school's German teacher. Our friend last week, why was she going to be the geography teacher?
It was another exam as well, wasn't it? So CSE.
Yeah, anyway, but she was plainly the least fit. So if you want to put yourself forward for a position at our school, give us the reason why you should be the PE teacher or the maths teacher or something like that based on what you've heard there, and we will appoint over the next few weeks an entire staff at our little treehouse school. We
have our BBC Sport Online topic this morning, live text at bbc.co.uk/football. The times you've said, can we have our ball back, please?
After that fella ran out of Rangers game this week with the ball went into the crowd.
No.
Yeah, the camera cut to him and he was away.
No.
He was away up the stairs and down there. He had it under his arm. Went into the crowd and the players were standing around. The camera went perfectly on him. And just like Dennis the Menace, he was running up the aisle with a ball under his arm, down the stairs. Never saw it again. Ever said, can we have our ball back, please? So here we go. That's all we've got time for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. Content. Don't talk to me about content. What you got there, Peps? Well, we're coming to Dave and you. Yeah.
Firstly, the other week we did names that are almost famous
Yes,
names.
we drifted into that again. We did.
Richard said, ahoy hoy, I didn't quite meet Joni Mitchell, but neither did this chauffeur at Gatwick.
Oh! Now, he's provided a photograph here of... just see what it is. I thought it was a chauffeur and mister. And it's got the eye at the end and everything. Yeah. There's a chauffeur at Gatwick and he's holding up a sign that says Tony Mitchell. And it's actually spelt T-O-N-I. Tony Mitchell.
Beautiful.
All right,
thank you,
okay. Here's our friend Dave. Good morning, Dave. I don't mind. Me and Pets can keep talking forever if you ever. Fingers crossed. Let's go on that. Now, I'll tell you where we go then. We're going to go to Christopher. We're going to go to Christopher because Christopher came out of one of these rambling introductions to the show that, almost see us through. And you get all that out of the system first, Christopher, before you come on the air, because we'll have to wear masks. Like the Japanese
mongoose
people do.
Mask.
It's a mongoose mask they do on the tube in London. And now, the Fortean Times, which underwrites this show every week with terms of bits and pieces, about 6 months ago I mentioned it was the anniversary or something of the mongoose of the Isle of... where is it, Christopher? The Isle of Man, isn't it?
Isle of Man, yeah.
The Isle of Man mongoose. And people just think it's all nonsense and hot air, what we say here. Yeah, but empires are turned on such thoughts. This is exactly what Marconi had in mind. And I mentioned this, and I said, the Loch Ness Monster gets all the heat and all these panthers you see running around Exeter. But this mongoose on the Isle of Man I'd never come across before. And it's not a goofy conceit. It's as real can be. And here is Christopher Joseph, who is it, as you pronounce, Joseph or Joseph?
Joseph is.
Okay, an author who knows about this. Just as briefly as possible, tell us about the talking mongoose of the Isle of Man.
Well, Jeff the Talking Mongoose is, as you say, has been largely forgotten now, but in the early 1930s, when he was appearing to these farmers on the west of the Isle of Man, it was a really big news story, and it was actually international news, and various journalists and psychic investigators and all sorts of people were travelling to this little village on the west of the Isle of Man.
You see, but the thing is, it wasn't a stunt. This wasn't like, you know, people you get now and villagers all play along with it, like the Brentford Griffin. That Northern village of Brentford. And this, and I've read the clippings and I've read your reports on it, was, as I say, as real can be to these people, saying, we're not joking, we're not seeking this attention, this happened. Tell us what the reports said about Jeff, the talking mongoose of the Isle of Man.
Well, lots of people in the neighbourhood claim to have heard him speak and swear at them and generally carry on. There were one or two people said they'd seen him, but he was rather elusive, and whenever people like Harry Price, the ghost hunter, Borley Rectory man, went up there, Jeff mysteriously disappeared, and he said, I don't like Harry Price because he's the man that puts the kibosh on the spirits.
Who the mongoose said this?
Yes.
To who? Who did he say it to?
To his family, his adopted family,
That's
the
right.
Irving family, who he lived with for several years.
And the name Jeff, didn't he correct them on because they were calling him Joe or something, and he
That's
said...
right, yeah. Initially they called him Jack, and then
Jack.
after a few weeks he decided he wanted to be called Jeff, but he couldn't really spell, so it was meant to be Jeff, you know, Geo double F, but...
Yeah.
It's pretty good that he could talk, I think, in the first place. So we can.
Well, see, this is it, and people think again it's just a felicitous piece of nonsense. But reading the story, these people believed it to their boots that this mongoose, for some reason, didn't he tell people to shut up and things? Some people try and say, just talk to me, and the only thing it says, oh, shut up.
Shut up, yes.
Yeah.
Nuts, chew coke. And he was very hard to pin down, so when this family were trying to ask him what he was, he would say things like, I'm an earthbound spirit, and then I'm not a spirit, I'm just a little clever mongoose. I'm a ghost in the form of a weasel, and I shall haunt you with weird noises and clanking chains.
Oh, man, that's dialogue. That is
played with him,
tremendous.
I think, yeah. There's a very good quote, which always reminds me of Lee Scratch Perry, the upsetter. He
Brilliant.
says, I have hands and I have feet, and if you saw me, you'd faint. You'd be petrified, mummified, turned into stone or a pillar of salt.
Wow, Chris, the idea we're actually getting Lee Scratch Perry into this story, I can't tell you how fulfilled my career now seems. But here we are giggling about it, but when I read the thing, I thought, why isn't this more famous? When was the last time Jeff appeared to anybody?
Well, he's appeared in various people's dreams, but if you discount that, in his heyday, it's about 1939. It was about when the war started. He first appeared in 1931 to this family, and then he lived with them and carried on and made mischief all around the neighbourhood.
But there's no industry on the Isle of Man for it, though, like there is, in Loch Ness or something, is there?
Sadly not. I think there should be a Mongoose Heritage Centre. I've tried to drum up interest in this, but no one seems to be particularly...
That's because we live in a dull-eyed age.
It's a sad thing.
It is.
Yeah.
I appreciate that more than you know, and any updates you can bring us on this, I would...
I shall keep
Where did you find the story, by the way?
Well, I used to work at the University of London Library, and they have a big Jeff the Mongoose archive. And when I started doing this book, I thought it would be quite a simple matter to just establish whether it was a hoax or not. And the more I looked into it, the more complicated it got.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I'm so sorry, I didn't know it was from your book.
Yeah.
Your book is exclusively on the mongoose.
It is.
Oh, I didn't know.
The Strange Tale of an Extra Special Talking Mongoose. Yeah, it was published last month.
Chris, maybe you are one and the same.
Lots of people have said that. Yeah, he's taken over my life. Well, it took a long time to write the book. So
give us that title again. What is it?
It's Jeff, the Strange Tale of an Extra Special Talking Mongoose. It's published by Strange Attractor Press.
Well, brilliant, my friend. I'm happy to publicise that for you, because these are the kind of stories that otherwise the mainstream media try to move to the margins as we approach the election. Thank you very much indeed, our friend Christopher Joseph. And you can see these things that start on the beginning of the programme. Just people think we're just pulling out the air. Fella's an investigator, went to university and everything. He's written a book about it. So.
The most startling thing to me was that a mongoose is a bit like a sort of a meerkat.
Yeah.
In my head, I have all my life pictured a mongoose as about the size of an elk.
Really? A mongoose? Well, can I tell you?
All the way through that first story, I was picturing this huge...
No, I know we're getting less places than we normally do, but let me take you off to Hawaii for a second.
Oh.
Let's go to Hawaii just for a second, right? 1982, Wendy and I went to Hawaii, and there we were in Honolulu. And the first thing I found is that the Hawaiian alphabet only has 13 letters. That's why it's Honolulu, Hawaii, Waikiki. And you pronounce every single letter in a word. Hanauma, aloha, you know? Hello,
Okay.
hello, goodbye. No, there's only 13 letters in it, right? Which is something. And then I noticed all the trees. And also, by the way, Waikiki Beach is not real. All the sand was brought there in the 1950s from Australia. They just built a beach. They had Hawaii, but they didn't have tourists. So as many as they wanted, so they built this Victoria sand in there from Australia.
Oh.
You know, it's a man-made beach. And then I was talking to a fella, and he said, I said, why have the trees all got those steel halfway up them? They did. And he said, oh, most of the trees on the island do, because we've got a terrible mongoose problem. I said, have you? Yeah, we've got real problems with mongoose. He said, well, we had a rat problem, you see. He said, and we had the tourists come in, they complained there were so many rats. And we knew the predator of the rat could be a mongoose. So we imported loads of mongoose and let them in Hawaii. But we realised that the mongoose is nocturnal and the rat wasn't. The rats we had weren't, so they never met each other. And now we've got a rat problem and a mongoose problem. He said, well, we've got it under control. But nobody checked to see what times they worked. And the rats were all out in the daytime and the mongoose come out at night and they never saw each other.
Beautiful.
I know. Anyway, we're not getting anywhere, are we? Is Dave there now? Hey, Dave.
Morning.
Good morning to you, Dave. I appreciate it. I'm sorry we couldn't find you earlier, Dave. This is last week's show this week, and it was about mean, measly, or parsimonious meals. What do you have, my friend?
Well, what it was, I used to work for a bathroom company doing exhibitions and trade shows around about the country, and I was sent one day to the NEC in Birmingham, and they said, well, you'll be finishing late, so we've booked you into a B&B in a place called Hanley and Arden. So I thought, all right, fair enough. And I finished quite late, about 10, and I found this place in a really nice house in a leafy suburb. So this looks all right. And I went up and knocked on the door, and this fella answered the door. And you remember Geoffrey Palmer's character in Butterfly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, of course, yeah.
Like it's very, very clipped and abrupt. And can I help you, man? And I said, well, yeah, I've been booked in for the B&B, an evening meal. They said you'd put me an evening meal on. I said, oh, right, well, follow me, come through. And here's the kitchen. And he said, help yourself to, not much in, but help yourself to a sandwich. And on this table in this kitchen, there was what I can only describe as sort of a wedge end of bread that badly cut. You couldn't get 2 slices out of it.
Oh.
Like an inch cube of orange cheese, literally, an inch cube.
An inch cube of, like an oxo cube-sized piece of cheese and a knob end of bread. And he said, go on, fill your boots, help yourself.
No butter. And he went to the sink and got the tiniest plastic cup of water.
No, not water.
Honestly. And he said, well, OK, he went off into the living room. And,
Anything you can't eat, leave it on the side.
Yeah. I was only a young fella and I thought, well, I didn't want to complain. And I cut the end crust off it. I fashioned a sandwich by shaving the cheese onto it.
Oh.
And when I was eating it, I had to moisten it in the mouth with the water.
Oh, not butter.
I went to bed in this bedroom that, like Harry Potter under the stairs.
Yeah.
The tiniest bedroom. Yeah, and I woke up in the morning and the house was completely and utterly empty. And no breakfast, no money swapped hands, and I just left.
Are you?
I wondered if I got the right house or whatever.
No, I bet you hadn't. I mean, whether this, and you say to the locals, but nobody's lived in that house since, Jeremiah Silver back in the 1890s. Of course, Jeremiah was a very frugal man, and you met Jeremiah, I think. Well,
probably did, yeah.
Dave, thank you very much. Of course, but it's used it in the series and in the book. The very first time I was ever handed a piece of bread with a lump of cheese by a school teacher. Went to her house and she said, do you want something to eat? And she gave us a big hunk of what we now know as rustic bread, a big lump of it, and a piece of cheese and an apple. And I'd never seen such an arrangement, and I had no idea, Dave, what I was supposed to do with it. And I thought, OK, so I just pushed with my thumbs the piece of cheese in to this lump of bread. And I pushed it in there and then tried to close the end of the bread. I nearly broke my jaw. What are you doing? I had no idea what a farmer's, a
ploughman's.
Ploughman's might be. None. And then she went, aren't you going to put any apple with it? I said, I didn't see that. Thank you very much, Dave, for letting me tell that story. There was something very quickly there. Now, let me be out of there.
A few weeks ago, this is good, this is leading up to the SSG. A few weeks ago, you asked Olivia Federici if she bought medium or large eggs. Yeah. This is from Jerry. Here in the States, we're way ahead. Jumbo eggs.
Whoa, they are. Why am I hesitating
chickens,
on it?
No doubt.
Because when they say extra large, I don't know, I've had a jeweller's eyepiece out, they're no different from medium. That's what we need. Giant chickens laying jumbo eggs. We'll be right back.
Saturday mornings with Danny Baker on 5 Live. Home of Danny Baker's sausage sandwich game. Will it be red sauce, brown sauce, or no sauce at all?
As if we aren't behind enough already. Claire puts this on. That means we've got to do this for about 5 minutes now.
Whole country doing it as an earth.
Well, I hope so. Cars weaving all over the road. Yeah, that's quite like breaking step on a bridge. You're absolutely right. Nick Dempsey joins us. Hey, Nick!
Hello.
And that sounded like a very sober hello, Nick, and I should hope so at this time in the morning. The great Olympic windsurfer, of course, Nick Dempsey. So, Nick, you've been to Polynesia.
I have, yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, man, alive. When I saw that in the handful of notes they hand me, I've always wanted to, I have an image of what Polynesia's look like, because Paul Gauguin run off to there. Is it like that?
Yeah, I'd say it's like that, actually. It's New Caledonia, which is one of the French Polynesian islands near Fiji. Yeah, it was amazing, really beautiful.
Were you greeted with people in grass skirts and flowers around their head? Please.
That is Hawaii.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought they did all that.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone wears grass skirts there.
Did you see? I should keep this for one of the questions in the game. Have you ever worn a grass skirt there? Because I have. I was in pantomime and I had to be shipwrecked. I did. I had to come on in a grass skirt. Yeah, I did. You've never done it yourself. You never feel more alive, Nick. You'll never feel more alive, my friend. We're going to come to your photography later on. But you've had your camera stolen twice. Am I right?
All my kit's stolen twice.
Go on, give us the circumstances of that. It sounds terrible.
Once we had our house robbed, where everything went.
That's awful.
That was horrible, actually. Yeah. And then the second time was straight out the back of the car.
No, you see,
that's my own fault, really, for leaving it there.
How long ago was that?
Oh, second one was about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
First one was 10 years ago.
You're talking to somebody who hung on as long as possible to my laser disc, because I believe when people said, the DVD's just as good. No, it isn't. I had to admit, and I'd spent thousands on laser discs, which I then eventually gave away. When people show you photographs taken on phones, do you thunder against that, or do you think there's a place, or it's just the way forward?
It's just a camera, isn't it? They're just cameras. They're just tools. I think it's brilliant that everyone has such an amazing camera in their hand all the time. And
yeah, but I know smudges when I used to work in the NME and stuff, and when digital came out, they said, nah, film never going to be, and that hasn't worked out like that. You try and go to Boots and get something developed these days. It's not going to. So where do you stand on that crucial debate?
Well, I think digital is better. Obviously, that's why everybody uses it. It's cheaper, it's more accessible, and the quality is generally quite a lot sharper. So
with film.
With digital.
Digital. I said for a long time they wouldn't admit to that. Friends of mine, they would not do it. And now, I suppose it's just a tradition and stuff. Have you ever heard this sausage sandwich game before, Nick?
I have.
You have? Oh, bless you. Thank you very much indeed. And yet you still agreed to come on, which is it's magnificent of you. And of course, you're working a lot in Japan, or certainly with the Japanese at the moment. Am I right with that? Is that?
I am. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm working with the Japanese Olympic windsurfing team, and I think stopping windsurfing after the Rio Olympics was quite nice and quite bit nice to go and do something different. But with the games being in Tokyo, I just had this opportunity that I just couldn't refuse, actually. And,
which nation forged the way? Would it be our friends out towards Hawaii and is it, I always consider it with America? Did they forge the way with the windsurfing?
Oh, I think in the early days, Maui was definitely the home of. Yeah. It still is really the home of windsurfing, and they still lead a lot of the innovation within the sport. And I think a lot of it grew from that American thing, but in Europe it's huge. Maui was
the place. Maui was the one. People go to,
yeah, I think so.
Wahoo, but no, Maui was the place. Only 13 letters in the alphabet, but they do just fine. We'll be right back with you, Nick. Here's our friend Richard. Hey, Richard.
Good morning, Danny. Good morning, Pets.
Good morning.
Richard, so do you like paddleboard and stuff? Is that what you do?
Absolutely not. No. Snorkeling, perhaps, but that's as close as I'll get to anything like that.
Cannot you paddleboard, don't you, Peps?
Oh, no, every weekend.
No, I bet you do.
No,
I bet you do.
I'm terrible at things like that. I couldn't windsurf, Nick. I couldn't pick up the sail. You know how it sort of lies on the water and you're going to get in and then pull. Couldn't do it. Couldn't physically do it. No upper body strength.
Extremely difficult. Who are you playing for, Richard?
Bradford City, the mighty Bantams.
I can see what's happened here. I can see what's happened here, and we'll wave at each other across the stadium later on. You and I. What's the feeling amongst your supporters about the?
Well, I'm in Leicester Forest at the moment, and there's thousands of us here. We're fairly confident. I think we're fairly confident, but. Yeah, we do well in playoffs.
Yeah, we're fairly confident as well.
Good.
You sound like a German supporter here. Oh, we do well in playoffs. Well, we do great. I was at the World Cup once. When England,
German owners.
Exactly where it is. That's where it springs from. When I was in Turin, I remember for the Turin semi-final, England-Germany, and it went to penalties, 1-1. The Gazetteers won. And I was sitting amongst a lot of German supporters, Richard, and when it went to penalties and the referee blew for full time to go to penalties, German behind me tapped me on the shoulder and went, "It's penalties, I think we win now." Nobody says that about penalties. Anyway, Richard, I'll take a handkerchief to throw at you so you can mop up your tears at 5 o'clock. Here's Ross. Hey, Ross.
Hi, Danny.
How are you doing, Ross? Ross, how are you on the water? Are you okay?
No, not remotely. I barely stand up on land.
No, I enjoy the water. I enjoy, but when those people go flying by on those kites, don't get that. Leave it to the professionals. Nick, I take it you do the thing on the kite where you fly through the air. Yeah. That's the vulgar end of your thing, is it?
Oh, I mean, I do it all, but it's very much the skiing, snowboarding thing that the kite surfers are the snowboarders, and it's quite easy and it looks cool. And the purists are the skiers, and they're the windsurfers.
All right, but actually, I'm just rewriting a question here because something occurs to me for one of these questions on the back of that. Who are you playing for, Ross?
Chelmsford City.
Well, I hope you win. I hope you'll win. I'll do everything I possibly can in this end. Okay, so here we go. We've got Bradford City against Chelmsford. When I was little, if I said the opposing team's name, I had to say Millwall 5 times afterwards. Oh. I just realised I cured myself for that. Mill, I think. Right, here we go. What's going to happen here is I'm going to ask some questions, and Nick Dempsey, that only he could possibly know the answer to. And we'll return to his photography at the end of this. And by trying to anticipate his answer, Richard for Bradford City, against Ross for Chelmsford, will try and score a goal for their teams. And I'm going to go straight to what we were just talking about. I'm pulling this question out the air as opposed to all the other weeks. Richard, you get first go at this, and it's Nick Dempsey. Now, when you're on holiday, perhaps, and you're in a good resort, but on the horizon, because there's other hotels around, I remember those days, you see those people go up in those rainbow-coloured parachutes up in the air.
Oh, yes.
Paragliding. They go behind the speedboat. And it's always a pleasant thing to see. And sometimes I take photo of it, I don't know why. I've got photographs of the kids in those from a distance of about 2 miles away. So you got the coloured parachute that goes up in the air. I'm behind it. Richard, Nick Dempsey, since he's done that, it's been 1 to 2 years. It's been longer than that. He's never done that. What do you think? Since it was being a coloured parachute up behind a speedboat on holiday, you know, it's just for the hell of it, because there have been kids around. Away we go. When he went up in one of those coloured parachutes in the air, it's been up to 2 years since he did that. It's been longer than that. He's never done that. What do you think there, Richard?
Oh, I think he'll have done it fairly often, that, as a man of the sea.
Yeah, but whoa, he's an Olympian. He's not on the beach at Benidorm saying, should we give that a whack? I see where you're coming from. It's in your answer. Go on.
1 to 2 years.
1 to 2 years. In the last couple of years he's done that. You've ever done that, Pep?
Yes.
No.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
No.
Oh, it's terrific.
No,
and they dip your
not that.
They
not
dip
a
your toes
jump,
in the water.
None of those things.
They dip your toes in the water and you come back.
Too much of a pessimist.
No.
I'll be the one it goes wrong for. No.
I wouldn't sit on one of those great big hot dogs. I
don't
like that. I don't like that.
Oh.
Ross, you are left with, it's been longer than 2 years, but he has done it. Or, no, never done that. What do you think there, Ross?
I agree, he's definitely done it, so I'll have to go longer than 2 years.
What about you, Ross? When was the last time you did that?
No, not one for heights myself. I've done the banana boats, but...
That's what I couldn't do.
Well,
yeah.
I'm no good on jet skis either. So here we go. Nick Dempsey. Those are usually rainbow-coloured parachutes. They drag behind a speedboat and up you go for about 45 minutes in my case. I was shouting down, that's plenty, mate. That's plenty. No, off he went again. It's been, in the last 2 years you've done that. It's been longer than 2 years since you've done that. You've never done that. The answer, please. Nick Dempsey.
I've never done that.
No.
Oh.
I thought that was definitely going to be the answer. Listen to the contempt dripping from his voice as well. I'm Nick Dempsey. I'm an Olympian. I think you're confusing me with a mug punter with too much time on his hands on a Spanish beach. What's that done to the...
It's 0-0. Bradford City 0. Chelmsford City 0.
I would like to do that. If we had a TV show here, Nick, next week we'd get you up in one of those to say, how does that compare? How does that compare to the windsurfing? I would have doubted Nick's ever done that, but there you go. So here we go. It's 0-0, is it? Mm-hmm. 0-0. See, Bradford? Not so confident now, are you? Not so cocky, Richard, there, are you?
Oh,
come on, Ross.
The draws, Danny.
Come on, Richard. We'll go to penalties and I think you win. Here's Ross's go at this now. Now, this, I hope Nick here got a clear frame of mind here, because Nick, this may take a little mental arithmetic. Here we go. Now, I want Nick to think of the last two numbers in his phone number. He doesn't have to reveal them. In his mobile. The last two numbers of his phone number, right? Ross, you got that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, if he times that number by the number of times he's seen Blur live, right? He's seen Blur live, right? So the last two digits can be a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 4. So it could be lower, it could be 8. We don't know that. The last two digits of his phone number, we're not going to ask about them. But if he times that, multiplies that, by the number of times he's seen Blur live, he gets a number up to 20, because if it's only like 2 or 3 at the end and he's seen Blur 4 times, he's still not going to get to 20. It's 20. It's 21 to 50. Or it's higher than that. That's the number we get if we take the last two numbers of Nick's phone number and times them by the times he's seen Blur live. What?
Clarification. So if his number ends 12,
yeah.
Are we classing that as 12?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a great clarification. That's a great clarification. Hang on, let's start again. I'm joined by Nick Dempsey on the phone. Nick, good morning. Oh, okay. Okay. Right, here we go. What I mean is, yes, you're right. The last two numbers added together.
Added together, right.
Last two numbers added together and then timesed by the number... No, it isn't. It isn't. Is it? What do you think?
Well, I think, because I think if you take them as a double number, you could end up with, 89
You're
times.
You're right. So add together the last two numbers you've seen.
Yeah.
Not numbers you've seen. What is it? Oh, phone number. The last two numbers of your phone. Should have stuck with the thing about museums and art galleries I was going to do. So the last two numbers on the phone added together, times by the numbers of times he's seen Blair. How many times has he seen former Prime Ministers? Sorry about this, Nick. We'll be at your way in a second. He adds those numbers together. See, that was the other thing. All right, he gets a number up to 20. He gets a number 21 to 30 or higher than that. Would that work? That'll work.
Yeah,
okay, that'll work. Who are we back to?
We're asking Ross.
Oh, we're asking Ross. Ross, take the last two numbers of his phone, add them together, times it by the number of times he's seen Blur. We get a number up to 20. We get 21 to 30 or higher than that. There you go. That's the question. What do you reckon, Ross? Ross, you still there?
Yeah, I think I've got that.
Yeah.
It'd have been too busy off windsurfing to waste time watching Blur, so under 20.
Oh.
There's one in the eye for Damon there, isn't it? OK, that's a number up to 20. Richard, you got 21 to 30 or higher than that.
I think we'll stick to 21 to 30, Danny, on that
OK,
one.
well, before we get the answer, Nick, you love the old Britpop, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You should have come along to TFI Friday when I was writing it. I'd windsurf
Yeah.
you. Oh, then would have got you up in a paraglider.
With Blur.
Exactly. Nick, take the last two numbers of your phone. Add them together.
Yeah.
Times them by the number of times you've seen Blur in concerts. You get a number up to 20, 21 to 30, or higher than that. The answer, please. Nick
Well,
Dempsey.
I think if you had said Oasis, it would have been very different.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer is 0.
No!
Oh.
What?
You've never seen Blur?
I've never seen Blur live.
Is that because you have a personal grudge from the old wars?
Well, no, I still enjoy Blur, but I was definitely more Oasis.
And how many times have you seen Oasis?
4 times.
Oh.
Oh, that would have been more. Yeah, see, I just... Right, so, no, but that's great, because 0, that's fine, that's the answer. What's that done, Peps?
It's Bradford City 0, Chelmsford City 1.
As it should be. I think we're going to end the game there. The first time ever. We'll come across now to give the world the satisfaction of the question that, well, you know what it is. Here we go. So, more than any sport, you got to watch the weight in the windsurfing. That's what you have to do. More than boxing. More than gymnastics. That's the thing. An ounce here or there, a gram here or there, and your only fear then is the wind, because the sea can be a harsh mistress. So, Richard. So Nick says, "Well, all right, I'm not in competition for a while now." Yeah, I hand him a sausage sandwich. It would have been worked. It would have worked the other way. It's still been 0, wouldn't it? If it would have just gone with 11 or whatever the number was at the end of the phone number. It'd still, if it's 0, it would have been 0. So it didn't matter. I hand him a sausage sandwich. Nick looks at it and he says, "Okay." Does he ask for red sauce? Does he ask for brown sauce? Or does he ask for no sauce at all? It's fine as it is. The answer, please. And get it wrong. Richard for Bradford City. Because this is an omen. Yeah.
Well, I got Maury to do me a poll this week on it, Danny. I think they came up with 70-30 for red sauce, so they've obviously got that wrong, so we'll go brown sauce.
Oh.
I was going to say, exactly. I was going to say, if you went with their thing, then Hillary Clinton's president of the United States and was still in Europe. What did he say?
Brown.
He said brown sauce. Ross, you're left with red sauce or no sauce at all for windsurfer come photographer Nick Dempsey.
Always a brown man myself, unfortunately. I actually asked my other half, and she seemed amazed that anyone would have red sauce on a sausage sandwich. But
I do.
I'm going to have to go with red.
We don't have to go with it. If it wins you the game here, don't be half-hearted. For thunder into this. Carry your ketchup with pride. So, Nick, I hand you a sausage sandwich. And I say, before we get the answer here, that, keeping your weight is absolutely essential. You don't get weighed in, do you, for a big fat person couldn't do what you did, could they?
No, you don't get weighed in, but it's same as most sports. It's quite very high. The power to weight ratio is quite important. And I'd hate to tell you how much weight I've put on since I stopped.
Good for you, bravo! Beer and beef gives a man shape. You've done your time at that coalface.
Yeah.
Do you know the wetsuits and stuff? I mean, they don't sell great big fat wetsuits, do they? Like Russ Abbott used to wear. Do they?
Absolutely.
I've never seen a great big fat wetsuit. Oh.
Yeah, it's quite a sight.
I'll bet. Nick's saying, "Don't press me on this. I happen to have one these days." Anyone I didn't think they did them in large size. I thought that was it. Olga Corbett or nothing. Anyway, so we hand you a sausage sandwich. We let out your wetsuit and say, do you want red sauce, you want brown sauce, or no sauce at all? The answer here, Nick Dempsey, please.
Brown sauce. Every time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tiebreaker.
Oh, it's a tiebreaker. No, not a tie. Is it a tiebreaker?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
all right,
yeah.
all right. Okay, so give us the score.
Bradford City 1, Chelmsford City 1.
Oh, I feel bad about this. This is how it's going to go, isn't it? All right. Well, it falls to Ross to go for it for the tiebreaker. And it's a simple yes or no here. Ross?
Yeah.
Nick Dempsey. Has he seen the Ghostbusters reboot with the women? Has he seen that film? Yes or no? Did he watch the Ghostbusters reboot when all the women were in it? Has he seen that film? Yes or no?
I'm going to say he's of an age where the original would have been sacrosanct, so no, he hasn't.
But that could lead you into thinking, I wonder what they've done with it, you know? But so the answer is no there. Nick, the recent Ghostbusters reboot with the women in, have you seen that film? Yes or no?
I have not.
Oh! Is that right? Oh, he's not. Oh, OK, all right. I should pay attention. What has that done to the score, Peps?
Bradford City 1, Chelmsford City 2.
Richard, still feeling lucky passing amongst your friends. Turn those coaches and trains round. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Enjoy another year in the First Division, Division 1, Richard. Richard, if you see me at Wembley today, would you come across and say, you wretch? I believe you set the whole thing up. Richard, thank you very much indeed. Ross.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Danny.
Thank you, Richard. And Ross, you get what everyone who plays the sausage sandwich game gets, our very best wishes. Thank you. So, Nick, we mentioned the photography there, but it's a real deal. You're not dabbling, are you? What's the story with it?
Well, it was always a passion, and I think a lot of people put you off doing what you really want to do and going for those passions. And
hang on, you went to the Olympics. You weren't flicking playing cards into a top hat. You were doing pretty good.
But, you know, you're at school and you tell someone you want to go to the Olympics, and you know the first answer is, how about a backup plan? And it's the same. You know, you get to your midlife at 36 and you say, I want to be a photographer, and most people say, oh, it's a dying industry, it's hard, I wouldn't do that. But I have done it, and I love it, and I'm doing a lot of portrait stuff. And
you're doing portrait? Oh, you're getting to be a regular Diane Arbus, are you? I gotcha.
Yeah. With people, anything with people. I love taking photographs of people. So I'm doing some corporate stuff, sailing stuff, and kind of everything in between.
You know what, you want to get yourself one of these GoPros. You can put it in your hat while you're actually windsurfing. How about that?
Yeah, we've got them.
Nick, come in and see us one of these weeks. There is much to discuss, and I appreciate your patience taking part in the sausage sandwich game, who everybody who does that do. So thank you very much indeed, Nick Dempsey. And here now is the show's own jingle.
Good morning, everybody, it's the Danny Baker Show, radiating out across the airwaves. Come the sunshine or the rain, come aboard the Danny train. We'll kick our slippers off and throw our cares away. What better thing to do than have a jolly jape or two? Don't touch that dial, there's nowhere else to go. Come and join a happy session, wave ta-ta to the recession on the Danny Baker Show. Take it away, Danny.
Always do, Wisby. Now, you can usually be going to a piece of music there, but this behind us lets us know we're going back into the boot of my car, where I discovered a 3-week-old mozzarella rolling around, creating its own atmosphere earlier in the week. And Nick joins us. Nick!
Morning, Danny.
Morning to you, Nick. Nick, what can you add to this Farrago?
Well, quite a lot. Your mozzarella story rang some bells for me, but I have to say mozzarella is by no means the worst thing to lose in the back of a car.
Go on.
I managed to misplace, for probably 8 weeks, a piece of smoked haddock.
Oh, yes, we have. Yes, we are going up the scale. And one second. In honour of that, this noise... Right, we're at the other side of that firm blast. So tell us about it.
Well, it's only been as good as that blast, Danny. I'd gone out to do some shopping. This was just after my eldest had been born, and I was in a slightly fuddled mental state, as you tend to be at that kind of time. And I bought some smoked haddock to cook up for tea. And when I got to the fridge to make the tea, haddock was there none.
Yeah.
Couldn't place it, didn't think much of it, until over the next few weeks, a gentle fog built up in the car. And it got slowly worse and worse until I thought, I'm really going to have to find out what's going on here. And I did a bit of archaeology in the boot, dug under coats and bags and things until there was this packet of smoked haddock out there gently steaming. I nearly lost my lunch on the spot.
But how long was it before the car was livable again?
It was probably, you could still smell it a fortnight later.
Yeah, that fortnight's not bad. That's not bad. But when 30 years ago, when Bonnie was a baby, one of her bottles came open in the back of the car. That didn't go out for a oh no, we had to sell that. We sold that on. We sold that on, that one. Thank you very much indeed, my friend Nick. When we return, the great David Hepworth's here with one of the great books of the year. We'll be right back.
You're listening to a BBC 5 Live podcast. The Danny Baker Show.
If you like this, you might also like this.
606, the UK's biggest football debate.
You can use all the excuses imaginable. These guys get paid a lot of money.
To find out more about our range of podcasts, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5 Live.
Saturday mornings with Danny Baker on 5 Live.
Available now on the 5 Live webcam. Go to bbc.co.uk/5 Live.
So David Hepworth, who wrote the best book of last year, 1971, if I were writing a splash for the cover of his new book, Uncommon People, I'd have to say, he's done it again. Uncommon People, The Rise and Fall of the Rock Star, which is a mournful title, and I didn't want to read that when I first, because it absolutely perfectly pre-season documents the fall and the disappearance of what we might know as the rock star. And I thought, well, that's not true until you read the book. You think, he's the first one of our generation, my generation, to break cover and say, well, the opening line of it, the age of the rock star, like the age of the cowboy, has passed. And David's with us now and justify that. Why do you say that, David? True though it might be.
Well, I tend to think that musical eras tend to fall into kind of 40 years, really. And, the age of the rock star starts in the mid-50s with little Richard Elvis Presley and so forth. And I think by the mid-90s, it's kind of running out of steam.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's starting to repeat itself. And also in the mid-90s, you get the arrival of the digital world, which very much changes things, because I think the rock star was a kind of construct of the years of physical product, when you had to invest in something, £5, £6, £14 or whatever. But you had to believe in these people.
The actual what we call rock music, which incorporates a lot of soul and everything else as well, it does. There's a bit in the book where you have to put it down and think, I think he's right. When you said, it sounds to a lot of young people today like Dixieland jazz did to us. It's like, they say, okay, that's a sound, but it's the idea of drums and guitars and all that just seems a little... Not to say it's, you can't go and see bands now.
Of course you can.
But in terms of what it means to the culture...
Well, it's what it meant to the culture, because, if you look at jazz, for 40 years, from the First World War to the end of the Second World War, jazz was the dominant popular music form. Yeah. It was what people danced to and so forth. Jazz still exists, obviously, but it's not the dominant form anymore.
There you go.
And so the same thing happened with rock and roll. So the people I'm writing about in this book, Little Richard...
We'll come to those. I've got my jukeboxes for you.
But they were known by everybody. They were familiar to everybody. The names who are kind of headlining the Download Festival will not be known to everybody. Doesn't mean they're not enormously popular, but it's a pretty special...
The idea when pop culture was the culture, or rock culture was the culture, that's kind of had it. The idea.
I think it has. And I think loads of things have changed. Oddly enough, I was looking at a picture the other day of Richard Nixon when Elvis Presley visits him in the Oval Office. And I'm thinking, I miss the days when the unpredictable one was the rock star. The kind of interest to change in all kinds of ways.
But this is no kind of tract, the idea that we might set it up there like you're going to be arguing like a thesis. It's an absolute rollicking story after story, explain the format of it, because chapter by chapter.
It's 40 years, and I've taken one person on one day in each of those 40 years.
When I read that in the introduction, you're taking one famous person on one day to typify what that means. But it works.
And they're kind of defining moments, because the idea of a rock star, here's the point. If you go away and Google like a rock star, you will find you can cook like a rock star, you can be a politician like a rock star, you can be a fashion designer like a rock star nowadays. And so a rock star has become a kind of cliche. And which, if you look at kind of fashion magazines, it means you look a bit like Jim Morrison. Whereas the truth of rock stars is there were all sorts of different people.
Well,
and they behaved in all kinds of different ways. So that's what I've tried to do, is break down in those 40 chapters.
If I might, what happens is you take this naked body at the beginning, and taking these 1 days, you dress the body until at the end you have that's what made a rock star, just in time for it to be usurped. You know what I like to do here? I like to take give us a number and I'll play you somebody and you tell us how they, or if you how they fit into it. So we've got numbers 1 to 15 here.
6.
Number 6. Let's see what we've got for number 6. Oh, okay. Well, 6 comes along with number 5 because this is how it starts.
Of all the shows on this tour, this particular show will remain with us the longest because not only is it the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do. Thank you.
There's David Bowie enjoying the moment to say, "I'm now." What? How does Bowie represent it?
Well, it's 1973, I think, when David Bowie does his last show as Ziggy Stardust.
That's it.
At the Hammersmith Odeon, and he's on the cover of the book actually on that particular day, getting out.
Was that day?
That's on that day, getting out the limousine round the side of the Hammersmith Odeon, being gawped at by a bunch of enthralled 15-year-olds. One of whom, Malcolm Green, has bunked off from school in Wembley that day, borrowed his mother's budgie jacket, gone down there to see what's going on, and it's actually amazingly, it'll give you an idea of the scale.
How do you know that?
I've been in touch with him.
Oh, okay.
Spoken to him. And the amazing thing is, that's David Bowie kind of at the zenith of his kind of rock star mystique. And yet those guys, 15-year-old boys, could bunk off school in Wembley and go to Hammersmith and buy tickets on the door on the day. That's one of the things that's changed about it. But I suppose what interested me about it was that what David Bowie was trying to do was kind of throw off this idea of this fictional rock star that he had created as a bit of a vehicle for him, because when he invented Ziggy Stardust, that's when rock stars started.
Did David Bowie invent, or was it all, because it all strikes me he did it on the hoof, because the album Ziggy Stardust is not a concept album. He was happy to buy anything that people read into it, given the fact that Chuck Berry's Round and Round was on it originally. Soul Love doesn't tell any kind of story.
No.
Was he doing it on the hoof, and is that part of the rock star?
Well, I think so, definitely. I mean, because one of the things that interests me, it's history. And, you write history with all your prejudices intact,
Yeah.
And, some people look at rock history and they see it all in terms of art, and some people see it all in terms of politics and whatever. I see it as all these things put together. It's career, it's opportunism, it's creativity, it's all those things interacting with each other.
But what do you think Bowie did then to the term rock star? Did he refresh it, or did he invent an entirely different thing?
I think he refreshed it, and then he started that business of adopting different characters, every couple of years when he turned out a new record. But still, when people think of David Bowie rockstar, they kind of think of the Ziggy Stardust idea, and it was also what he introduced in Ziggy Stardust was the idea that kind of being a rockstar was a little bit tragic. It was going to have a bad ending, that you couldn't live with the kind of the expectations of the audience, which is sadly what everybody found.
Give us another number, my friend.
12.
Number 12. Okay.
All of my love, all of my kissing, you don't
It's a wonderful chapter on Buddy Holly. Again, you don't try and tell Buddy Holly's story. You tell the story of that one day. What day did you take with him?
I took the day that, sadly he died, because he...
I didn't know he was out there hawking himself to pay the rent.
He had the streak of hits, but had no money because he'd fallen out with Norman Petty, who was kind of his manager.
That in itself is a part of a rock star, yeah, absolutely.
And so all the money... he was immensely famous, loved all over the world, but he was... he hadn't very little
He was as broke as Bowie was when he did Ziggy Stardust.
Absolutely. And he was offered a tour of the frozen north, kind of Fargo country. Really unpromising thing that he only did for the cash. And he schlepped around in this bus that was so cold that people used to set light in newspapers on board the bus to try and keep themselves warm. There were guys who playing in those bands who served in Korea who never thought they would ever be so cold again, but they were cold. And tragically, the reason he died is all because of laundry. Because he hadn't been able to clean any of his clothes on the tour because they were just arriving in town, playing the show, and then going on to the next place. And so he worked out a way that he could fly ahead to the next date get there early enough to do his laundry, and everybody would catch up a day later.
That's sad.
He took the plane, in bad weather conditions, and tragically killed. But I do think that Buddy Holly is actually the most important rock star of all.
Go on.
Because
why would that be?
He's the template. That he wrote his own songs. He didn't look glamorous. He didn't look like a figure from Mars like Elvis Presley did. He looked kind of nerdy. And I think people like Bob Dylan, John Lennon, David Bowie, all these people, they looked at him and thought, I could do that. I can see where his fingers go on the guitar, you know what I mean? That looked like a bunch of neighbourhood boys suddenly making records. And he was a huge inspiration. And his music is as popular now as it was at the time.
I'm just going to take, if I will, I'll take control. Just going to do 2 in 1 here, and it gives me an opportunity to play this. And I'll tell you how. But here we go. So, 1 second. But this is a 2 in 1 deal. They're both in the book. So we'll just have a little of this, and then we'll return. We'll take. Isn't the modern age magnificent?
You love this.
I just going to play a little of this, and then we'll deal with The Who and with Madonna, both who are represented in chapters in the book. Listen to this. Is it going to fit? Oh, yeah. So, let's deal first with The Who, because what place do The Who have in the rock star culture, and who is the rock star you're choosing out of The Who?
Well, I suppose I'm interested in the conflict within The Who. It's about a day in 1965 when they were, like everybody else in 1965, they were just working crazy hours.
Yeah.
Everybody was just on the road all the time. 2 shows a night. This might not last longer than 6 months. Get out there and make as much money as you possibly can. And The Who had a falling out at a gig in Denmark, because there was 2 factions in The Who. There was kind of Daltrey and Entwistle at that point. And then there was Moon and Townsend. And Moon and Townsend, took a lot of drugs. And that used to cause great, tension in the band. And one of these shows went badly wrong. And Daltrey blamed it on Moon's, ingestion of pills, which resulted in a fist fight backstage. And it was decided that this had gone too far, even within The Who. And Roger was pretty much thrown out of the group. But Roger, at that point, had also been thrown out by his young wife and child. And so he actually had to sleep in the back of The Who's van.
This is why this book, the details chapter by chapter on this one day.
For about 6 days, until there was a meeting of The Who. And during that time, they thought about forming all kinds of other groups. And then they decided, actually, that this kind of strange group, even though they didn't get on, was the magic of The Who. And they couldn't do any better.
If I might quote your own thing, actually, because apart from the meat and potatoes, if you don't mind saying so, of chapter by chapter, the writing is so strong. I love it that you say here about The Who. These peculiar qualities led to The Who playing in a way no band had ever played before. The Who made the sound of things boiling over. And then later on about Moon himself, Keith Moon's drums, which sounded as though they were either on their way to a fire or just escaped one. That is the truth. And so Moon is the rock star in this, is he, or is it The Who?
It's the idea that a rock group a star rock group can contain tensions within itself that in any other entertainment organisation would be got rid of.
Yeah.
You'd think, get rid of either the drummer or the singer because we can't get on. But it's the fact that they couldn't get on that made it work.
Well, and now we come to Madonna. So, and the chapter on Madonna again is absolutely bang on because it's about hype and stuff. I mean, Madonna is a tremendous talent, but the hype angle of it.
What's the talent? The talent is for manipulation of modern media. Madonna was a dancer. That's how she got to New York. That's how she kind of made her name. Music was kind of added on as a way to justify her dancing. And what she became brilliant at was, as the scale of music got bigger and bigger in the 80s and so forth, as post-Live Aid, the shows got bigger, the stadiums got bigger. It was all huge. She was brilliant at just manipulating that scale. So what she did, what I focus on is the evening in Toronto on tour, where she's. It's been pointed out that some of her undulations on stage were a little bit,
overtly sexual.
Overtly sexual.
Yeah.
And the Mounties pretty much turn up to kind of half-heartedly, put a stop to it. And of course, Madonna is thrilled to bits that this is happening, because that's what.
While all the time going on television saying they can't treat me like this, I am being, crucified in public. More stories. Made herself available for every single interview.
She referred to it as the fascist state of Toronto. If you've ever been to Toronto, they're the nicest people in the world. It's an absolutely ridiculous thing. But it was all about, that's what she dealt with. Manufactured outrage. And she was brilliant at it.
And you mentioned Live Aid, of course, which you were responsible for. But that was, there's a chapter on Bob Geldof, the catalyst for what we now know as the little intimate concerts vanish overnight.
I think Live Aid, the key thing about Live Aid, and I can say this because I was there, the most important thing was the weather. Yeah, it was a blue sky. Had it poured, it would not have been all over your TV screens like it was. Yeah. And the nation looked at Freddie Mercury conducting the crowd and the blue sky in the background, and thought, I fancy that.
Yeah.
Can you get tickets for these things? That's what we thought.
And until you read this, you realise that
that's the year it took.
Nobody wanted to be doing the rain dance waiting for Santana at Woodstock, did they? Not really. You didn't want to be at Woodstock, not really.
Because that's the year that Bruce Springsteen first starts playing open air. Plays at Slane Castle in Dublin. Having never even been to an open air concert himself, he goes on stage, and halfway through the interval in the middle, he has a terrible falling out with John Landau's manager, because he said, "How can you put me through that?"
It turns out,
well, that's what you have to do.
That's what you're going to be doing.
That's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
Give us another number.
13.
Number 13. Now this is extraordinary, because Tim Rice was here last week, and he said there's only one great founding father of rock music in this country. And I said, strange you should say that, because Hank Marvin, I'd no idea till I read this that. Not out of just some kind of boring giving him his due. I had no idea of the extraordinary impact of Hank Marvin. What is the still?
Well, he's the kind of invention of the guitar hero, which, when you think about it, is a kind of fundamental idea in rock and roll, isn't it? And, we don't talk about piano heroes. We don't talk about saxophone heroes.
No.
There's something about the guitar hero that I think has actually got shades of the cowboy about it. It's the noble loner, and particularly in the sound of this. And Hank was the person who did that, and he just, by virtue of just his glasses and the guitar, he had an image.
Yeah, but the guitar is the thing that he focused on. This wasn't any guitar. You didn't go down...
Oh, no, it was the first of this model of guitar to be brought into Europe. Cliff Richard was his kind of employer. And he said, I need a better guitar. So they got the Fender catalogue. And Hank Marvin kind of pointed at the one he wanted. And absolutely all the bells and whistles added. And it came to £100. And this is 1960.
Yeah. It took about 3 months to arrive or something.
3 months to arrive. And when he used to play it in London, guitarists would come from far and wide just to look at it,
Yeah.
And he's an amazing idea, Hank Marvin, because... he inspired that whole generation of Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and all those guys, the old bass being a guitar hero on him. And B, if you live in London, if you go down in Oxford Circus Tube, there is still a guy now busking, dressed up as Hank Marvin. He has the glasses and he plays Shadows.
I remember Neil Young turned up at Hank Marvin celebration evening, and it was, what's Neil Young doing here? They have no idea that, comfortable, old Hank is revered. But there's reasons for it later. I'm going to take over now because I love this. The reasons for Stevie Nicks, and I summoned them too recently. Said only one Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac. It's not true, of course. But it's what Stevie Nicks, and again she was doing. Until I read this, I thought Stevie Nicks had come through several other bands and was a name in the business. Not true.
No, struggled She was, at the time she was, Lindsay Buckingham, who was her boyfriend, and Stevie Nicks were kind of co-opted into Fleetwood Mac. And at that time, she was cleaning the house of their producer in order
to make a living.
In order to make a living, in order to avoid going back home to our quite affluent family, who were clearly sitting there going, when is she going to come back from 10 years in Hollywood, desperately trying to make it in the music business?
Just clicked.
And it's an extraordinary story, Fleetwood Mac. I think it's a unique story.
Oh, yeah.
It's one band replaced by another.
The thing you say about Stevie Nicks, again, I hadn't thought about, is that whereas, dear departed old Linda McCartney, you say, what does she do? You could aim that, she'd be a distinctive voice, but it's the actual visual things that she brings to Fleetwood Mac.
I think Fleetwood Mac are a wonderful group. She's the person who makes them interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
If you take her out of there, they're the Doobie Brothers. Yeah. Whereas
or their Fleetwood Mac between Peter Green and her.
It's Stevie, and there's just something about her that makes you want to look at her. She goes slightly over the top, which is part of the appeal. But also there were loads of young women, and I write about, I think it's a concert on the 4th of July, 1976, in Florida, where Mick Fleetwood is playing the drums, looks out beyond Stevie, and you can see in the audience that there's girls out there with scarves. Now, maybe the odd one with a top hat. That they've adopted Stevie's look.
Yeah.
That kind of wacky, fancy dress look.
No one was ever going to do it with Danny Kerwin and stuff.
They were not going to do it. So she is the person who, and the talent in Fleetwood Mac is very evenly distributed. Yeah. But she's the person who makes them interesting.
I just want to give me an opportunity to play this again. This is all in the States are called Stevie Nicks, but this is one of my favourite things. This is from an American radio show, and this is as true then as it ever was. So just listen to this. This is about Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks, the distinctive voice of Fleetwood Mac. Her style is unforgettable. Her lyrics, unintelligible. Stevie's back with all your favorite hits on one big album. It's Stevie Nicks. What the hell is she saying? Yes, all her classics are here. You'll get me, and the incomparable.
It's tremendously unfair, but it's very, very funny. It's only a little bit more.
Digitally remumbled for stereo inaudibility. This is Stevie Nicks at her most nebulous. Stevie Nicks, what the hell is she saying? Available now on Incoherent Records and Tapes.
Okay. You start the book here.
I do. Little Richard turns up for a recording session in 1955, turns up for a recording session in New Orleans. He's never really had a hit. They try a few things. None of them really work. They go across.
As much as you can, his past, the colourful past, as much within reason on radio.
He'd run away with gospel caravans and all kinds of things. He'd been billed as Princess Lavon. He would appear in a frock. He tried absolutely everything. He got his ideas. He used to work on the lunch counter in the bus station in Macon. So he got his hair cut from Escarita, this guy who used to have a high-rise pompadour who came through. And the opening riff of this, the Awop Bop-a-Loo-Bop, which still resounds around the world, is something he used to just tap out on the lunch counter in the middle of the night to keep himself amused.
And this song was pretty slung together,
absolutely
cleaned up from a
he sang, in the bar at lunchtime, he sang this absolutely filthy song.
It is filthy, watch out.
And the producer said, that's catchy. He said, yeah, but I can't do that. It's absolutely filthy. So the producer got in Dorothy Labostri, who was a kind of would-be lyricist, and she heard him sing it, came up with these kind of bowdlerized words. They recorded it in 2 takes at the end of the session, and it went round the world. And when that record turned up in Britain, probably a year later, I think David Bowie said, prior to that, the world was black and white.
Yeah.
After that,
That's
the
when
world was in colour.
Well, it's just, and we're coming to an end now, but just to show you, people may not understand. I mean, this as a raw rock and roll sound, which people couldn't cope with that, and so obviously white versions were cut of it, which sounded like this. They said, let's do that. And this became a hit.
For Mum and Dad?
This became the hit because nobody would play that. And that kicked off the era of the rock star, which is now, even though it's nice and comforting to think it's still here, as Uncommon People documents, that age now has passed.
It's passed.
Like the cowboy.
Absolutely.
And thank God we made a living out of it while it was here. But it is a terrific book, and you can plainly hear I gobbled it up. And there's one last little quote I want to quote it, I think this is during a Beatles one. This is the Paul McCartney thing, and I just think this is just so brilliantly put. It says, by 1968, when the Beatles were, again, just nothing, we'd never seen anything like this, or the world hadn't. And he said, clearly the four members of the Beatles had ascended beyond the clouds on which the merely successful were perched, and had now reached a terra incognita of soft power and magical prestige on which there was neither footprint nor flag. And when I'm reading that, I think, this is more than some kind of a romp through famous names. It is a terrific history book. It's a terrific rock and roll book because it's by David Hepworth. Uncommon People: The Rise and Fall of the Rock Stars. Well done, my friend.
Thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all. Go up with a hat-trick now. Write one about me.
Saturday mornings with Danny Baker on 5 Live.
Call 08085 909 693. Text 85058. Email lord.reith@bbc.co.uk.
One last quote from David Hepworth's Uncommon People when he's talking about the Rolling Stones and he's describing them. He describes Bill Wyman as looking as though Cruikshank had knocked him up from a set of instructions provided by Dickens.
I can't wait to read it.
It is, and you get the previous one. That's a belter. Very good morning to everybody. Now it's back on our heads as we've got Jane, and we've got John, and we've got Steve coming up. What you got over there, Peps?
We'll start with lying about your job.
Your partner lied about their job when you first met, but we'll take it.
We're broadly in that subject. A friend of mine, shout out to Dave, is from Wigan with a pretty broad accent. Now, I'm not even going to try. He and a couple of friends were on holiday in Spain and met some girls, and one of them asked him what he did for a living. I'm a chemical engineer. Disbelief. Lengthy exchange. I am, give over. I am. He finally said, I'm a dustman. To be told that was nothing to be ashamed of. Dave then returned to his job of senior engineer at one of the MOD's development labs.
Well, the actual category, we won't run through them again. They're all online if you're anywhere near a computer, but we seem to have a pretty full half hour. But here's our friend Jane. Hey, Jane.
Hello.
Thank you for being there, Jane. This is, don't talk to me about scissors. Oh, yeah. What do you got for us, Jane?
Well, many moons ago, I was a newly qualified teacher, and I had a class of 7-year-olds making the archetypal Easter card with the chicks and the eggs. Yep. And the kids were all getting on quite happily, and I kept noticing this one child, who probably better referred to as Child A, in the corner, sort of slamming down a pair of scissors and picking another pair up. And he finally came out, and I said, "What's the matter?" So he said, "None of these work." So I said, "Well, I'm sure they do." So I sat down with him, and I said, "Get the pair of scissors." And he got them, and I looked at him, and instead of putting his fingers through the finger holes, he was merrily tracing round the outside of the egg, the shape of it, not using the scissors, but more like a pencil.
Like a lino knife kind of thing, just going around it, if you will.
Yes, just going round it, just tracing round it, not even attempting to open the scissors with his fingers.
Did you point this out to the poor kid, or do you just think?
Yes, I did. And I said, "Haven't you looked at the others?" And I said, "Have you never used a pair of scissors before?" And he sort of looked at me with this glazed expression as though I was talking quantum physics to him. Anyway, we progressed, and I showed him how to put his fingers through the holes, and he finally cut round the egg, and it was rather angular, and his chicken, by the time he finished, looked like some sort of mutant thing. Anyway, all the kids were licking and sticking, and he made his card like the rest, and he took it home, and a couple of weeks later it was parents' night, and his mum and dad came in, and they said, about his progress, and I said I was a bit surprised actually that child A didn't know how to use a pair of scissors, and his parents looked at me with this sort of same dazed look on the face, and I said, no, I said he actually didn't know how. I said he traced round it. I said he does now. So,
were they aghast, or did they say you didn't teach him how to learn scissors? Did they think you'd done the wrong thing?
No, they didn't think it was anything weird or anything. But I said, he's fine now. And I said, has he never used a pair of scissors before? And his father, without breaking his face, just looked at me and said, no, because he's got a stammer.
A spanner?
A stammer.
Oh, a stammer.
A stammer. And I sort of went, and then realised he was deadly serious.
This connection here is escaping all of it. He hasn't used a pair of scissors before because he has a stammer.
That's right. He wasn't allowed a pair of scissors because he had a stammer.
Let's have a think. Let me think about this. Give me a second here. Let me think about this. Perhaps?
No.
No, I'm sharpening my mind up in the background now. Can't figure it. And did you just let that go?
Well, no. I said, well, actually, he's got really good finger control and fine motor skills now. So I said, I'm sure he'll be fine. And I just hope that now he's not a bespoke tailor down there, row, cutting out food.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're appointing through the calls this morning various positions at the school, our imaginary school, because I'm the German. I'll be the German language master because I was put in the library to do the German exam with all the books, and even though I had no German in me, I got about 98% on that. I'm going to make you our religious studies teacher, if they still have such things, for teaching how to do Easter eggs with scissors. You could be the metalwork teacher, I suppose.
Arts and crafts.
Now arts and crafts is too on the nose. I'm saying Jane's going to be religious studies. She not only she brought enlightenment and taught him how to cut out an Easter egg. Thank you very much indeed, Jane. Coming right to Andrew, what you got over there, Peps?
We mentioned earlier exercise books, the not throwing out of, and what wallpaper you'd put.
Why? This is under the category things, surprising things your parents kept in your youth.
Slightly tangentially, but around 1975, I lent my physics exercise book to Mickey James to copy my homework. When I got it back with full marks, Mickey had covered the exercise book with pages from Penthouse.
Oh, no.
My physics teacher didn't even notice, let alone say a word.
How about that? Hand it in, and you've got this playing in the background as soon as you open the pages. Covered it in Penthouse? That's a bit reckless. Perhaps it's the motoring page. Here's Andrew. Hey, Andrew!
Hi, Danny, you right?
Good as gold, Andrew. I forget sometimes these categories are floating around out there. Literally, in this case, this is being in a pond, a pool, or indeed a river. But you mustn't be a prank. What have you got for us, Andrew?
No, I used to deliver pizzas. This is about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And one sort of cold February night, I was asked to deliver a pizza to down a dark track. And there was two houses at the end. And I wasn't quite sure which house I was delivering said pizza to. So I drove to the furthest one and then realised that I was at the wrong house.
Yeah.
So...
for a moment there, I thought we lost you. Go on, so you got the wrong house, and then,
Yeah, and the guy came out from the other house and sort of, from across the driveway, sort of shouted, well, I'm over here, mate. So I said, all right, okay. So I thought, well, there's only like a small wall between me and him. So I sort of walked towards the wall, and it was only about, I don't know, say a metre. And it was pitch black.
Okay, can I just stop you there? I just want to stop you there, Andrew. Yeah. So you're delivering pizzas at night, and you've gone to the wrong house, and then a fella shouts out, "Over here, mate!" There's just a short wall in front of you. You can easily jump over that. And the subject is, have you ever ended up in a pool, pond, or a river? Go on, my friend.
So I'm holding this big, back in the days, used to hold like a big red pizza bag, which had said pizza and can of Coke in it and everything. Yeah. And so the guy sort of like came out, and then as I walked towards him, he went back into his house, obviously thinking, go and get his money, whatever. And so I thought, oh yeah, there's the wall. So I climbed over, so I climbed up to the wall, holding the pizza bag, and jumped.
Yeah.
then it was
Can I just again interrupt you there? You jumped and am I right?
Yeah, it was a lot taller the other side. It was about 3 metres. And so anyway, so I fell in the water, obviously, and it was cold, and I was in shock because it was
I should
very,
imagine
very
so.
cold. But then the funniest thing that always sticks in my mind was that the guy came back out of the house. And he was like looking around just to say, "Where is he?" Like he was only just over there, and there was a steep bank, and I sort of like walked up like the creature from the Black Lagoon, sort of like holding the red bag with the pizza.
Now that's what the audience want to know. Did you hold that aloft as you went in the drink?
No.
Bravo! What a pro!
The pizza had gone. Yeah. So I had the pizza bag, but it was obviously wet. The can of Coke had gone, and the bloke was just like, "Oh my word, are you right?" I was like,
"Well, Andrew, I think I can hear." What area was this in at the time?
I was in Southampton.
Okay, no, anyone in the Southampton area, if you could, because I think I understand what Andrew's saying here.
Funny enough, Danny, a couple of weeks later, I was around a friend's house, and I was chatting and he said, "Oh, my mate had a pizza delivered the other day, and the guy fell in the water," and I said, "Yeah, that was me." So, it does come round to you.
The fact that you had the bag, but the pizza itself had escaped. Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. I want everyone in the Southampton area now to help out, which I think this call is calling for. Could you turn on your taps, and if a pizza comes through it, could you return it to Andrew, because he lost that there nearly 20 years ago. We're expecting it to come through somewhere in the Hampshire area. If you just put on your bathroom taps for him, we're coming with you, John, and you, Linda, and you, Steve. What you got there, Peps?
Well, we've got last fortnight show this week. Peter, apologies for being a couple of weeks late with this. This is how did your nan take to football? Mm-hmm. My nan on my mum's side was a midwife in Wigan. Oh, we're back to Wigan again. In the 1930s, there was no NHS, not many midwives, and she delivered just about every baby in her part of town.
Oh, lovely.
In the 50s, my dad would take her to watch Wigan play rugby. At the end of a particularly tight match, one of the centres broke free from a tackle and ran in from 50 yards out to clinch the match. As 20,000 fans cheered loudly, my dad looked at his mother-in-law. "He's one of mine," said my nan. I delivered him.
Oh, isn't that beautiful? That's goodbye, Mr. Chips, in another form. Nurse Walkerdine delivered me. I was born at home, in a flat in Deptford. And Nurse Walkerdine, I found a photograph of her online years ago. The first person to see me come into the world. Yeah, Sister Walkerdine. She was the midwife in the area. So we'll be going from here. Let's, who's that? Steve. Hey, Steve!
Hi, Danny.
Steve, thank you very much for being there. These are odd things your parents kept from your youth. What have you got for us, Steve?
Right, well, it's 1984, and I'm into bands like Duran Duran and Nick Kershaw and stuff like that. And then I suddenly discover Pink Floyd.
Good man. Okay.
I'm 15 years old, so I'm quite artistic. So what I do, I decide to paint on my bedroom wall a scene from The Wall.
All right.
Which is the brick wall,
Yep.
the teacher, the teacher figure.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So the teacher figure pushing the school children into the school, which is actually a mincer.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone, that one, yeah.
I did actually send your production team a photograph.
Oh, I think, and it's been delivered here, or is that a pizza? Watch out for the river in between us. Here we go. There it is.
Right.
That's very good. Yeah. It's extraordinarily good. Scarf himself.
I was 15. I was 15 when I did that. I am now 48, and that is still on my old bedroom wall.
Is it? Well, I think, and you're quite entitled to, under a cloak of, a kind of stealth.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, exactly. You're just swanking here. You're saying, pretty good, wasn't it? It is pretty good. Did you go on to do anything? Did you go on to do anything in the arts?
I didn't. No, that is actually about 7 feet tall. When I was at school, I was quite artistic, and I wanted to go on to art college, but I failed my A-level art.
Oh, but you shouldn't have done. Why?
I ended up a civil servant.
Something in one of the cliches, certainly in drama and in situation comedy, is when American situation comedies are the worst for this. When anyone goes back to their childhood home, their parents' home, their room is still decorated like it was when they were a child. It's still done like when they're 13. So, all right, we heard a proper example there of Steve that has got that. But there'll be teddy bears, there'll be pop stars on the wall. When did they move out? When did they move out? When they're like 12? I don't think rooms are kept like that, Shrine. But they always go back and the room is like they were when they were 12. And not the kind of, goth
20-year-old
den it would have been when they moved out. Every time, and the new wife will say, "Is this your old room?" And they'll be like, Donny Osmond on the wall and stuff.
That's why hasn't it become the mum and dad study?
I know.
I know.
But Steve gives us the lie in our teeth there. Here's our friend Linda. Hey, Linda.
Hello, Danny.
Thank you for being there, Linda. This is in the week. I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube at the Aberdeen Rangers game. The ball went into the crowd, and the fella got the ball, and the camera went on him, and he was away. He was away up the stairs with the ball and ran out the ground. He took the ball.
Right.
So the subject is, can we have our ball back, please? What have you got for us, Linda?
Right. Well, we used to live in Erthing which used to be the home of the mighty Royston and Diamonds football team. And we were out for a walk one day, walking past the stadium, and all of a sudden a ball came flying over the stand, down onto the tarmac in front of us, bounced a couple of times, and my partner Steve picked it up and I could tell he was thinking, do we leg it? What do we do? What do we do with this ball? And all of a sudden the side door opened to the grandstand, and the steward popped his head out and said, Can we have our ball back, please?
Wow! I've often thought that, because you don't...
You gave it back, yeah.
Because of the way modern stadiums are, Linda, you don't see balls kicked out the stadium much anymore.
No,
it's quite a regular occurrence.
Yeah, well, I think Steve thought, there's no way I can kick it back over because it's too high. So, he was just contemplating what to do with the ball at that particular time. And then, of course, he was saved by the steward who opened the door.
At Millwall's old ground at the Den, certainly on the stand side, the ball was often flying over there. It could go over there, and beyond that, we used to always listen out to see if you could hear that telltale doing that means it's hit someone's car roof.
Or screech of a brake.
You did, yeah. Thank you very much indeed, Linda. The balls don't get kicked out of football grounds anymore. They used to happen all the time. Coming right to you, Kate, and then John, and then Kevin. What you got over there, Peps?
Notable things you won't do on principle. Mark in North Shields has sent us his list of 5.
Oh, OK.
Number 1.
Come on, I'll give it a bit of gravitas. Here we go. Things you won't do. Notable things you won't do on principle. 1. Go through a door before a woman. OK.
2. Criticise another person's musical tastes to their face.
That's half of my conversation taken away.
3. Eat octopus. They are cute.
If you like.
Number 4. Eat leftovers. The dog gets them.
That's true. I'm with him on that. 5. Learn to drive.
I am 45 and that ship has sailed.
Well, as I say, the
principle.
This was going to be based on, I think, Woody Allen, when he's asked in one of his films, have you ever made a stand about anything? He says, yeah, sure. Because when that war was in South America, I refused to eat grapes for 48 hours. It's that kind of statement I'm looking for. I agree with him. You see, the octopus is brilliant. The octopuses are brilliant. They've got beaks and everything. Wendy's very like that with rabbit. She won't eat a rabbit.
Oh, I don't have such principles.
I'm
tasty, I have it.
No, I know, but away from food, we want ridiculous stands you've made. Here's our friend John. Hey, John!
Hey, Danny.
Thank you very much for being there. Next for you, Kate. John, just to reiterate, people are joining us all the time. Let me put that another way. Let me just say it again for everyone. The mozzarella was rolling around the back of my car for 4 weeks. We only made itself known this week. What have you got for us, John? What can you say?
It's not as bad as 4 weeks, but it's happened to my dad quite a few years ago. So he used to work in Manchester for a bank, and as was customary on a Friday, have a quick pint after work, and that turned into several. So realising he was in a bit of trouble on the train back, thought I'll get some tea. Now I don't know whether this was to placate my mum at the time, as a peace offering, as a fish supper, or whether he was reacting to what had happened previously when one time he had walked in late and she stood over the bin with the tea and
scraped it all in. There's an old-fashioned image, but there you go.
So he walked to the chippy, he got the fish and chips, and he used to have one of those blue trench coats, a sort of raincoat, sort of with a belt, which had big inside pockets. And so to carry the fish and chips, he thought, I'll put it in my coat. So into the inside pocket it went. Came home, walked through the door, put the coat on the peg, walked off, got a drink, and went to bed, and that was it. Weekend of doing various jobs and playing with me and my brother. Monday morning rolls around, up early, get dressed, get ready to go out, put the coat on, walk to the train station. It was about 20 minutes away.
He still walked there with the fish and chips in his pocket.
Well, that's where it goes. He got to the train station, got on the train, and then for the first couple of minutes start sniffing around going, what's that terrible smell? And starts looking around the carriage, and then everybody else starts sniffing and looking around the carriage. And then slowly starts backing away from my dad on a very packed commuter train into Manchester.
Well,
my dad's now got a 3-foot exclusion zone around him.
Hold on there for the noise. Here we go. And you have to throw the coat away and everything, shouldn't you then?
Well, he didn't realise at first, and then all of a sudden the smell combined with then the memory part, the drunken thug from the previous Friday, realised what was in the coat pocket. He didn't even look. He didn't even decide to see
you can't
offer it round.
You can't. I mean, I'm stunned that you would walk along not knowing there's a fish and chips in your pocket. This is like in the Likely Lads when Terry stays at Bob's house and borrows his white Mac that he loved to go to the butcher's, and on his way home puts the liver in the in the pocket, then goes to the pub and he gets a nice big blood stain on it. Jolly great illusion there, but that's a fish and chips abandoned for an entire weekend in someone's pocket. Here's our friend Kate. Hey, Kate.
Hi, Danny.
Thank you for being there, Kate. I appreciate it. Kate, this is fully clothed in a pond, pool or river. How did it happen?
Well, this is not my story. It's another story about a dad, actually, about my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he was... my parents lived in Germany for many years, and...
What, military? Is it? Military, was it?
Sorry?
Were they in the military?
No, not in the military. My dad worked in construction, so he's moved all around. He's currently listening in Dubai.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Bravo.
Which is why I thought I needed to tell the story, and then I typed in before, so he gave me the full lowdown, so I didn't get it incorrect. So he's listening in Dubai now.
Oh, he's proud of this one.
Yeah.
This was in Germany, and he's gone to play golf at... he said it was the third poshest golf club in Germany.
The third poshest?
Apparently, the third poshest.
Okay.
I don't know what the top two are, but third poshest.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was as he was coming to the final green, but it turns out actually it was as he was waiting to tee off.
Yeah.
He was waiting to tee off in front of the clubhouse, fully packed, spring day, everyone having their breakfast, all these people dressed up really lovely, really nice. My mum's up there waiting as well, having a breakfast, watching tee off. My dad decides he's going to go and wet his towel so he can clean his clubs on his round and, generally do all that. As he goes down to the lake, puts his golf caddy down, no brake on, he goes rolling off, shooting into the lake.
No! Can I just bring everyone... if people cannot imagine what it would be like he got out, he's in a golf buggy that's suddenly hurtling down to a lake. It would sound like this. Once again, it would go... And was he fully immersed, and were there witnesses to it?
It was fully into the middle of the lake, because apparently the trajectory and the slope of the... not only let it roll down and then leapt off into the middle of the lake, which Dad then had to sit down and slide on his bum to get into it.
Well,
so.
I hope that on behalf of this nation and all our seagoing heroes, that once he got on the buggy in the middle of the lake, he saluted as it went down, and then the bubbles rose to the surface. Because that, I may watch too many cartoons, but that is exactly what somebody should do.
He retrieved the golf bag, got it to the side, realised that the keys had gone out of it, and then had to go back in the lake and search for his keys.
Dragging. Next week we may do dragging the lake, but that might go a bit dark. What do you got over there, Pep, just to finish us?
Wasn't worth the journey. Jamie in Nottingham. My mum describes Harrogate as, I wouldn't put more than £1 on the car.
Oh, I don't know about that. That seems to be there's a certain Yorkshire bias towards Harrogate. Well, thank you very much indeed, Louise Pepper. Of course, to David Hepworth, but as always, chiefly yourselves. And now I'm off to go to the championship. See you soon.
The Danny Baker Show is a Campbell Davison media production for BBC Radio 5 Live.
You're listening to a BBC 5 Live podcast. The Danny Baker Show.
If you like this, you might also like this.
Kermode and Mayo's film review.
If you don't know your app from your elbow, boom tish, here all week, tip your waitress.
To find out more about our range of podcasts, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5live.